Well, we now have our 11 a.m. update this Tuesday morning, August 19th, on Hurricane Erin. Hurricane Erin has been doing some fluctuating as far as its status goes, rapidly intensified from a Category 2 into a Category 5 hurricane basically overnight between Saturday and Sunday. Then it underwent an eye wall replacement cycle, went down to a Category 3 storm. It strengthened again yesterday, back up into a Category 4 storm, and now is down to a Category 2 hurricane, which is below major hurricane status. Sustained winds of 105 miles per hour just to the east of the Bahamas right now. Pressure continues to grow up to 961 millibars right now compared to the 933 millibars we saw yesterday. And it has kicked into gear a little bit more, moving northwest at 9 miles per hour as opposed to moving northwest at 7 miles per hour as of the last update. So taking a look at the path associated with Erin, you can see that it is going to continue up to the north and the northwest before finally sometime early tomorrow morning shifting gears and moving up to the north and then eventually starting to curve up to the northeast away from the Atlantic coast of the United States. Now with this latest update on Hurricane Erin, it does have it just maintaining Category 2 status as opposed to re-strengthening back into a Category 3. But whether it's a Category 3 or a Category 2, it's still going to be kind of on that in-between range of the winds. It's either going to be a high-end Cat 2 or a low-end Category 3 as it does get close to areas like the coastal portions of the Carolinas and eventually the coastal portions of Virginia and Chesapeake Bay. So as we continue to watch Erin go up to the north and northeast, it is looking to thread the needle between Bermuda right here in the very tiny riding and the mid-Atlantic and New England portions of the United States. Friday by 8 a.m., 100 mile per hour winds, which isn't too far off what the current winds are associated with Erin. And then as it continues to move up into the northern Atlantic Ocean, by Saturday it should be a Category 1 storm and then eventually weakening fairly quickly by the end of the weekend into a remnant low pressure system. But Erin has already warranted a couple watches and warnings. We can see up the Atlantic coast as we go into coastal areas of North Carolina, specifically the Outer Banks area. So Kill Devil Hills, Hatteras, getting down to Morehead City. Now under a tropical storm warning, which is the upgrade from the watch that was issued as of yesterday. And now the Virginia Beach and Norfolk area issued in a tropical storm watch. The main difference between these two is that tropical storm conditions are going to be possible during the watch, and that's going to be for a longer time frame. That's going to be within the next 48 hours. But the tropical storm warning is looking more and more likely that the Outer Banks are going to see tropical storm force conditions within the next 36 hours. And what I mean by tropical storm force conditions, winds of 39 all the way up to 73 miles per hour could be possible. But along with that, when you do have some very gusty winds, and especially with the circulation of the system kind of moving farther inland and farther inshore, you can get a couple of storm surge warnings. So let's take a look at those right now, where we do see all of the Outer Banks under a storm surge watch. Once again, it's kind of the same story that we did have with the tropical storm watch. It does look like storm surge conditions are going to be possible over the next 36 to 48 hours on the Outer Banks, but we don't see that watch or warning extended farther up to the north in areas like Virginia Beach, which are included in that tropical storm watch as of right now. So the Outer Banks, Kill Devil Hills, Nags Head, Hatteras, getting down to Portsmouth, Beaufort, areas over near Morehead City. Those are going to be the areas that I would imagine are going to very likely see some evacuation warnings. So if you are watching this from any of those areas or know anyone that does live in those areas, make sure that they are heeding the warnings of local officials. But it's not just Hurricane Erin out there. We do have two other potential areas of development in the tropics, the first of which has been outlined for the last couple of days, and the chances for development continue to increase. 10% chance of developing now over the next 48 hours and a 60% chance of developing past that 48-hour period. So that's going to be this tropical wave that's still interacting with its fair share of Saharan dust. But once it moves through this dust cloud, it will move into a more conducive environment just to the north of South America in terms of having a good chance for formation. And it looks like the path right now, at least this shaded area, is really taking a beeline path right there where Hurricane Erin did form, and as it has moved in the northern Caribbean and north of areas like Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and eventually Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas. But past that, it's still anyone's best guess about where this potential system could head. So we are going to continue to keep a close eye on it, since especially areas in the southeast are going to be directly to the west. And if this is to continue farther in the direction that's already headed, you see Miami, Jacksonville, Macon, all within the vicinity of this, and it does look like it has pretty good chances of developing. However, it may not be our next named storm, because we now have a new tropical wave that has just moved off the west coast of Africa, located right now just south of Cape Verde, those islands right off the west coast of Africa. And it does have a 30% chance of developing over the next 2 days and over the next 7 days. And while none of those percentages are as high as the 60% chance with the system that is running ahead of it, the 30% chance of developing over the next 48 hours is higher than the 10% chance that the system ahead of it does have in that window. And this is mainly because of the lack of Saharan dust that I am seeing over here off the west coast of Africa. So it's running into a more conducive environment for development a little bit earlier than the system running ahead of it. So we'll continue to keep a close eye on both of these systems, but it's going to be late next week at the earliest if this system is to get its act together and impact maybe some land masses in the U.S. And it's going to be even longer if this system does get its act together, form into something of a named storm, and we still do not have a very good idea about where this system may or may not head. So with two potential areas of development in the Atlantic now, we have crossed off 5 names so far, with Hurricane Erin being the latest. The next 2 names would be Fernand and then Gabrielle. That would be the 6th and 7th names of the 2025 hurricane season. We're getting into the later portion of August when hurricane season does begin to heat up. So it's going to be very important to remain diligent to the tropics and stay up to date for the latest information as we go into a very active portion of the hurricane season.